Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Eiffer Fund volunteer training. Today is May 25th, 2021, and I see several faces who were with us last year. So thank you for holding on tight and coming back for more. My name is Sarah John. I'm the Executive Director of the Interfaith Committee on Latin America, IFCLA, and I use she, her pronouns. Rita?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rita Chang. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Coordinator over at IFCLA and the Program Manager for the Immigrant Service Providers Network, the ISPN.
Awesome. Well, let me go ahead and share screen and we'll jump right in. Can I get a thumbs up or any kind of comment that you can see the slides okay? Excellent. Okay.
Alrighty. So what are we talking about today, folks? Well, here's our agenda. We're going to start off with some grounding. Then we're going to, once we're settled, talk a little bit about what the fund is. Many of you here have already been involved in the fund, but for the folks who are joining us who are new, this will be a brief overview of what this initiative is, as well as how we are going to be incorporating volunteers into this initiative, what that timeline looks like, following up with what are the specific roles we're going to be talking about tonight, and then concluding, taking some questions, and then getting in your car, going home, and going to bed. How does that sound? Yes, thank you, Sarah. And feel free to pop questions in the chat. It's a small group tonight, so we have time to answer those as needed. I'll pass it to Sarah for some grounding.
Awesome. Well, I don't know about you, but today has been, like many days, an intense day. And by this time in the day, I have a lot on my mind and a lot in my heart. So let's just maybe take a couple deep breaths together, and then we can share some words here from Mayor Michael Tubbs. Thank you for being here tonight. Keep breathing and let's listen to a reflection.
These famous food brands didn't just change the way we eat. They changed the way we buy.
Super helpful for grounding.
The first vending machine. But I would say, I think as a society, we would be wise to go back to those old Bible stories we were taught growing up and understand that, number one, we have to begin to see each other as neighbors, that when we see someone different from us, they should not reflect our fears, our anxieties, our insecurities, the prejudices we've been taught, our biases, but we should see ourselves. We should see our common humanity. Because I think once we do that, we can do the more important work of restructuring the road. Because again, I understand some listening are saying, well, Mayor Tubbs, you're talking about structural violence and structural this, but you're on the stage. That the structures can't be too bad if you could come up from poverty, have a father in jail, go to Stanford, work in the White House, and become mayor. And I will respond by saying the term for that is exceptionalism, meaning that we recognize it's exceptional for people to escape the structures, meaning by our very language, we understand that the things we're seeing in our world are by design. I think the task for us as TEDsters and as good people, just people, and moral people is really do the hard work necessary of not just joining hands as neighbors, but using our hands to restructure a road that in this country has been rooted in things like white supremacy, a road like in this country has been rooted in things like misogyny, a road that's not working for far too many people. And I think today, tomorrow, and 2020, we have a chance to change that. So as I prepare to close.
So that was a very brief clip of a much longer and quite dynamic TED Talk, which we can share the link for in the follow-up email. But one thing I appreciate about what at least I take away from that is this idea that we've struggled with, or at least I've struggled with Eiffer Fund from the beginning, right? There are structures and systems in place that have intentionally excluded people in our community from the access to the support that we all need baseline, and more so during a global pandemic, and more so when you're systemically included prior to said pandemic. And I think what is helpful for me, and what I think I hope to find inspiring, is that we do have to do the showing up, and we do have to do the downstream work. For those of you that have been with me in other training spaces, right? We do need to lend the hand as a neighbor, and we have to do that in the context of changing those systems. And so for me, hearing words like this, and why I felt like this was appropriate to start a training on the Eiffer Fund, is because Eiffer Fund is one of those things that is we have to do this right now. We have to meet needs right now. And that is always going to be insufficient. And Rita and I struggled a lot with that last year, as I think many of you did, when we saw the overwhelming need last year, what we couldn't meet and what we couldn't help. And we're already seeing that again this year. And so I think part of the invitation is to hold that, and to know not as a way to invalidate what we're doing, and as a gut check that we're not the saviors here. This isn't the space to change the systems. This is the space that we witness the damage that those systems are causing, so that we don't have an excuse to be ignorant anymore. That's my take on it, and I would love and invite any feedback or thoughts, anything that comes up for you. We can take just 2 or 3 minutes here.
I really appreciate when he said, you know, the idea of like seeing ourselves in our fellow compatriots or whatever, people that we see on the street that don't look like us or are from a different country, but that, you know, we see that, yeah, the shared humanity that we all have.
Thanks, Lisa.
I had not heard until he mentioned, I had not heard the term exceptionalism to refer to something good. In the field of history, whenever you hear exceptionalism, you only hear it to speak about bad things. But I like that new focus that, you know, whenever you see someone that has pretty much defeated the structures that are supposed to keep him or her down, that's actually something to kind of celebrate, think about. And also a question mark is like, how can we ensure that the system actually promotes more of this until it's not an exception anymore?
Something that helps me live with the dilemma of working to change structures versus meeting immediate needs. And the immediate needs can sometimes be more gratifying. And the structure part, of course, is a long, hard haul. But it's not a matter of either or, it's a matter of both and each one is important. It's not one is better, it's just that they're different, responding to needs in different ways.
Thank you. Well, thanks so much for that. And I'm going to pop back into the share screen and keep on plugging along. Julie, thanks for joining us. If you have a moment at some point, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, we shared name, pronouns, and your affiliation. So that's your connection to IFCLA. So if you did this before, if you were a congregation member and that's how you found out, something like that, you're welcome to pop it in there. No pressure. And I also want to just make sure that you know that we are recording this tonight, but I will make sure that faces don't get shown. We'll black those out, and it's only available. Chat is not included, and it will only be available to IFCLA volunteers. Okay, here we go.
So why are we here again? Well, tonight, what we hope that you'll walk away with is knowing what the Eiffer Fund is, as well as giving us the tools in order to adequately volunteer and support this initiative. And so our core values through this initiative include trust, transparency, safety, and privacy, all with the understanding that we are meeting immediate community needs in pursuit of larger systemic change. So what exactly is the Eiffer Fund? Well, the Immigrant Family Emergency Response Fund is a direct cash assistance initiative designed to channel larger philanthropic dollars directly into the hands of immigrant community members who had been excluded from government assistance during the time of COVID, including unemployment, stimulus, any sort of things like that, we all should have access to. And so with this initiative, we are specifically calling on volunteers to assist with application support over the phone, calling folks who have been approved for funding to let them know, hey, we have some funding available to you, and just being able to work out those logistics. And then finally, for folks who need a different form of access in the form of fund distribution, whether that's cash delivery to their home or place of work, we are asking volunteers to show up in that way. And so how did this come about? Well, first I want to back up a little bit and say, oh, Sarah, you can go on. So when we're talking about the folks in the community, if you are not new to IFCLA, we refer to community members as compa. And so I'm pretty sure that some of you could probably explain this better than I can since you've been here longer. But what essentially we're trying to say is when we are calling community members compa, we are identifying that we are equals and partners in the pursuit of justice and equity. And so centering that dignity and that shared value and connection, we use this term in order to convey that we are privileged to be able to walk with people in the struggle for justice, and that this is an honor that we have as we are all fighting for this justice that we want to see. And so to scoot on over, the Eiffer Fund was launched last year in May of 2020 between the Immigrant Service Providers Network, which is a coalition of 40 plus agencies in the St. Louis region who are direct service providers as well as community advocates of immigrants in St. Louis. Local philanthropic partners such as Marillac Mission Fund, the Lutheran Foundation of St. Louis, Youth Bridge Community Foundation, as well as folks like you, IFCLA volunteers. And so through this 2020 year, with the Eiffer Fund, we received 1,442 applications. We were able to provide direct cash assistance to 731 families. We redistributed $372,000 into the community. And then we have some stats at the bottom to just continue to undergird the impact of this fund. So if you were to say, what's the purpose of this? Like, what good does $500 do? Well, that is a question that we've been asked multiple times. So we put together this graphic. What does $500 do in the context of St. Louis? Well, it could mean housing security for half a month. It could mean diapers and wipes for 4 months, utilities paid for 2 months, miscellaneous payments for credit card and debt payments, as well as food security for almost 2/3 a month. And so we're talking about a family of 4 in St. Louis. And I'll pass it over to Sarah to talk a bit about what we're working with this year.
So I think similarly to, as Reed explained, similar to our process last year, for those of you that were with us, you knew that we developed and implemented and got money raised and money out the door in a very short time frame. This year we are trying to do similar efficiency of getting money into the hands of people that need it most. So applications, we've made some differences. So you might know this as different from last year. And if you weren't involved last year, then this is the way it is this year. So applications will be open for a week. So they opened on Monday, the 24th, and they will be open through Memorial Day, through the 31st. part of your question, or my question, what we debated was, why a week? Some of that is to gather information that we need to be able to go to funders and say, this need still exists. And I could get on a big soapbox about how challenging that has been this year already, specifically with like progressive and liberal folks who feel like we won and that immigration's totally fine now because we have a Biden administration. And that's a lot of, you know what? And so part of this is to kind of double down on what we've been screaming and shouting about for the last 5 years, which is still the problems that we face today. So we're leaving it open for that long and mitigating expectations in the community, knowing that we will only be able to fund about 60 people or 60 applicants with this phase. We do hope, so to be clear, we do hope that this will be something that can happen as far as we need it to happen in the community. But that's a circular chicken and egg sort of conversation. So after the 31st, then staff will be working to process those applications, and they will be approved by the steering committee of the Eiffer Fund, which is a committee that sits at the ISPN, the Immigrant Service Providers Network. So they basically get clean data, right, that has all the applicants that have been weighted. And so we'll go into that process in a little bit. And we will be taking sort of the idea is to give support to the most removed people who are most removed from existing systems of support. And it's only, like we know, is only going to be probably 5%, 1% of the applications that we receive. After the applications are processed, then and approved, then we start the distribution phase. That'll begin on Monday the 6th and 7th. Monday, is it Monday the 6th? I think Monday's the 6th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so during that time, IFCLA staff, raise your hand if you're IFCLA staff. Okay, look at our amazing new IFCLA staff. Welcome Ale and Angel to the team. Woot! So I'll be working mostly with Ale and Angel during the 6th and 7th, those Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of that week, to prepare sort of what the information we need to distribute. So money will be distributed either by check or by cash. And so then there's volunteer coordination and things that happen during both of those few days. And the idea is that within 1 week, so the 7th through the 12th, or 6th through the 12th, all money is out the door. That might mean that checks haven't made it quite there in the mail, but the majority of it should go out in that time frame. As a reminder, by way of comparison, we had money out the door in 2 weeks for several hundred applicants last year. So doing 60 applicants in a week, we got that. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
So I want to go into a little bit, Rita outlined at the beginning, what do volunteers do in terms of Eiffer Fund? What does that look like? And so I want to go into what those roles are, and then Rita and I will break them down to understand where you fit in. As Rita mentioned, there's basically 3 roles: application support, confirmation calls, and then fund distribution. So basically, there is one place for monolingual English speakers to support, and that usually is in fund distribution. On rare occasion, we can have applicants, we have had applicants that need support who are not Spanish speakers. And so sometimes it's helpful to have a person on hand to say, oh, this person is speaking English and needs help with their application. Could you please call? But primarily those requests are received in Spanish. In fund distribution, we send folks in teams of 2 to distribute cash. So one of those individuals is usually monolingual English, and one of them is absolutely bilingual in Spanish and English to be able to support the transaction. You might ask, do you ever receive requests outside of Spanish and English? The answer is yep. And we handle those separately, and Rita filters those out. And so that is a very small fraction of what we received last year, but it happens sort of in a parallel trajectory, engaging some other folks. So I'm going to pass to Rita to give the details on application support during that first week, this first week that we're in right now.
Thank you, Sarah. So application support, what does that entail? Well, basically during the time that applications are open, volunteers will be calling individuals who have been contacting us at our Google Voice line for application support, whether that's because they don't have access to internet, if they are unable to read or write, or if they just have questions about the application and just want to be able to speak to someone who can help them. So what this would look like is starting from tomorrow until early next week, volunteers can sign up for a day and return a set of calls for that day. And so to give you a sense of how many calls we've been receiving so far, it is day number 2, and we've received 6 inquiries total. So it's not an intense kind of thing where you have to be on call at all times, but more so there's a set of individuals who would like a response within 24 hours, and a volunteer could just respond to them easily. So basically what that would entail is one of our staff members would be receiving a voicemail, forwarding it on to you if you are volunteering for that day to return messages. You would listen to the voicemail, see what the inquiry is. Perhaps someone needs assistance with filling out the application because they don't have access to the internet. And so we would go to the next slide. We would move into this phase, talking about the application questions. So someone calls you and they say, I need help completing an application. Well, what are those aspects of the application? Well, the application itself is a Google form that is available online in English and Spanish. Why only English and Spanish? Well, to be quite frank, this fund was put together because there were people within the ISPN as well as IFCLA who have competency in English and Spanish. And so being able to source that volunteer competency and be able to have that as an option to increase access was something that we were able to do. Though this did mean that more folks would apply in Spanish. And so this is kind of why, you know, working with IFCLA is a great partnership because we have bilingual volunteers in English and Spanish. Sidebar. However, back to the application. It's a Google form. When the application is live, you can click on it. It will ask you a set of 3 questions. No, sorry, a series of questions in 3 categories. There we go. So the first set of questions before you even start the application are some eligibility questions. So who is this fund for exactly? If that wasn't quite clear from the onset, this fund is for folks who live in the St. Louis region. We use the United Way defined region, so that is inclusive of both sides of the river. This fund is for folks who are immigrants or are supporting family who are immigrants. This fund is for folks who are undocumented or in mixed status families, and more than often, well, likely if you are undocumented, you are ineligible for unemployment payments. Ineligible, excuse me, not eligible. And then the fourth thing would be, because of COVID, your income has been disrupted in some way. Maybe you lost work hours, wages, salary, something like that. And then finally, as of December 2020, Congress has included some mixed status families in the stimulus package. And so when this fund was first created, that wasn't even an option. And so just taking that into consideration, knowing that in the phase that we are right now, we continue to operate as a COVID fund. So that is another consideration that we're taking into account about systems of support that people have access to. So all that being said, before you're able to complete the application with someone, you need to be able to ascertain if someone is even eligible for the fund. And then if all of those questions fall in line and you are able to proceed to the application, the rest of the questions Part 2 is just a bunch of contact information. And so that is done so we have a name of someone to call, we have a phone number, we have a zip code, we don't ask for address, and things like that. So just trying to get a sense of who the folks who are applying are. Nothing too invasive that requires proof of identity or anything like that, because we know that that creates barriers to access. And then finally, the third category is, Sarah, you can scoot on to the next slide. The third category is questions about systems of support that folks have access to. So that includes access to food stamps, rent and mortgage payment, if they can pay for their rent and mortgage for the month, if they can pay their utilities, if they've received Eiffer funds in the past, and then finally, if they've received $500 or more in financial assistance from another organization or such. And so these questions just help the application committee get a sense of who has access to different systems of support in the community as well. I'm looking to see if there are any questions. Okay.
Nope, you're good.
Awesome. Okay. So in summation, if you are assisting with the application support, again, we'll be tapping folks in from the tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday. From tomorrow until early next week. As we all know, the application will be open until May 31st. And so it's possible that we could receive some calls on that day. And so if folks do call on that day, we'll honor that and send their information on to volunteers with that timestamp of the 31st. How to get involved with this? We'll email you after the training. And if you're interested in application support, we'll ask you to email us back with a day that you're willing to take some calls. After you get those calls from IFCLA staff, you will be calling folks back on your phone. If you feel comfortable, you can call them from your personal phone. If you would rather folks not have your number, *67 is also an option. And then once you have that call, figure out what the needs are regarding the application. If you end up filling out an application while the application is live, you can do that on the Google form itself as it's live. And if you end up submitting an application, folks will be contacted within 2 weeks. So that's the follow-up. And then after that has been complete, we ask that you reply to the IFCLA staff that you communicated with about the progress, what happened, so we can keep track of follow-up. And that's about it.
And just to add one other clarifying piece here, because I think some people maybe aren't familiar with how Google Voice works, but the voicemail comes as an like part of the email. And so our staff will forward an email to the volunteers who are on the application support team that contains the voicemail and the phone number. So then you have access to it and can go from there. Just wanted to clarify that in case there was confusion.
Thank you, Sarah.
Of course.
Okay. Second role. Confirmation calls. What are those? Okay, so we passed through the application period. Applications are closed. This is June. Sarah, could you skip to the next one? This is June 7th. So what's going on here is volunteers who are assisting with confirmation calls starting the week of June 7th. They'll be calling funded applicants to confirm payment details. And we do have a call script for you to use. And so anything that comes up in your call, just communicate that with us, and then we'll be able to take care of that follow-up. Basically, how would that call go? Well, I'm glad you asked. First of all, you would call the number listed that you were provided with from IFCLA staff. You would credential yourself. Who are you? Why are you calling? Hi, I'm Rita. I'm a volunteer with the Eiffer Fund. And then who are you? What are you calling about? Well, I'm calling to speak with Sarah about her application to the Eiffer Fund. Folks who you would be speaking with just to confirm, I noticed that Sarah indicated on her application, by the way, that she was funded, on that she would like to receive her payment in the form of a check. Is that correct? And then Sarah tells me, yes, that's correct. Great. So we're going to send a check to your address. Can you please verify that for me? And so this is tricky because Spanish is my second language, but Spanish is Sarah's first language. And sometimes I have to review the alphabet. So what we would like to do in this process is to make sure that you are repeating back information so that you have everything correct. The last thing that we want to do is send a check to an address that doesn't exist. And then finally, to wrap up your call, you want to inform the compa, the applicant that you're speaking with, that they'll receive a text from us when their check is in the mail. Okay, any questions so far? Let's see.
I have a question. You're saying when their check is in the mail? Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, so when you're okay, I've just never dealt with that. The people that you're going to, it's because we have cash. I get it. Sorry.
Mhm.
Okay.
We're going to talk about cash distribution right now. But yes, we are providing funds in the form of check and cash. I just spoke about check, and then I'm going to pass it on to Sarah to talk about cash.
Awesome. Thanks, Rita. So the cash, so this is like the separation, the first separation of the confirmed applicants is in the check group or in the cash group. And if you're in the cash group, then the check group doesn't call you to confirm your information. The volunteers do. So let's start with that. The basic overflow here is that by Sunday or Monday, IFCLA staff, June 6th or 7th, IFCLA staff will be assigning the teams of volunteers. Like I said, those will be in pairs. And then by the end of the day on Monday, we will have assigned compas to the teams. So the number of compas that each team might be serving depends on the number of teams that we'll get to confirm. So some of you who were involved in IFER last year were doing 10, 20 applicants a day, week sometimes. This will be far less than that. But, if we have maybe 30 people who have cash delivery, then it's maybe 5 teams, blah, blah, blah. So you can do that math. But we'll make those assignments and those will get sent out. And then the team basically says, yep, I'm in, I can do this. That's affirmed. Then we'll send the information about the compas. So what happens then is that there's a role for the English speaker and a role for the Spanish speaker. The Spanish speaker speaks to the compa. The English speaker comes and gets the packet. So what the packet means is you pick up cash. We have a whole sign out process. So you'll notice as I talk through this that I like to connect the dots in full circle of when the money came out of the bank, when it was given to a volunteer, when it made it into the hands of the compa, when I got the signed cash receipt from the compa that says, yep, I really got that money. I am really happy to say that system worked last year. We didn't have issues other than when we tried to do mobile payments. But we didn't have, that system works. It feels a little bit maybe cumbersome or like detailed, but then we're sure that the money gets to the people it needs to get to. So packets get picked up. Some people last year picked, so maybe you have 5 people that you're going to deliver to. That's $500 a person. So that's maybe, what is that, $2,500? And so maybe you're not comfortable picking up $2,500 at one time. Maybe you'll pick up $500 one day and $2,000 the next, or however you need to do it to accommodate the deliveries, right? So while we're doing packet pickup, then the Spanish speaker on the team is coordinating with the compas about what delivery looks like, where they meet. Not everyone wants to meet at your home. Maybe you want to meet in a parking lot. Maybe they want to meet at the library or, at some place where they feel most comfortable. And you get to talk through those. I'm not going to micromanage those details. That's where you being a loving community member comes into play, and you get to center what that you don't get to. my expectation is that you center the Compa's needs in ensuring that what you're doing is how they want it done. And so then you volunteers coordinate with each other, you do that. Cash distribution is likely, if we're flying high, it's going to start on Tuesday, could start on Wednesday. And hopefully all money has left our office by Friday the 11th, which should mean that certainly all cash should be in hand and cash receipts back to IFCLA by the 12th, which is that Saturday. Clearly there might be some delay on the checks. After you send after the cash goes out, two things come back to me. One is that, or by me, I mean IFCLA staff team. Look at this, I'm not doing it alone this year. Comes back to us. And the second piece, cash receipt, which the Compa signs and says, yep, I received the cash. The second one is the report back form. So that's an online form. Last year, I think a lot of teams have the English speaker fill it out. That's basically just a quick form to say, is there something else that happened that we need to know? So a lot of folks last year, what we got was a Compa was saying something like, this was so helpful, thank you so much. Thanks so much for your generosity, or tell whoever thank you, right? Some of those kinds of messages. This is where you put that information. Other things that came through there were like, oh, my son has COVID and I can't leave the house and I don't know where to go and I haven't had groceries or something like that. What do I do? That goes also to the feedback form, which has a box that says, does IFCLA staff need to follow up with this? And you say yes, and then we get flagged and then it happens, right? So that's a primary sort of closed loop. We'll look for those two things on the back end. So this is maybe another visual way of seeing how that works. So team proposals will go out. Again, that'll be Sunday, Monday, hopefully. We will pull team information from volunteer signups. We'll make sure that everyone who has signed up to volunteer for Eiffer Fund has also completed signed the liability waiver, confidentiality agreement waiver online. And then we group people by zip codes or by the counties, right? So some of you selected where you're willing to drive. Not everyone is willing to drive to Madison County, Illinois. And so that's okay, and we'll do our best to make matches based on that, and or based on, we've had a couple of folks, power volunteers last year, like Dan and Kim Madden, who said, hey, I want to volunteer with my wife. And so we put them on the same team together. So you can also do those sorts of things. And we try to accommodate that as best as possible. So oops, I missed that correction here. So there's not a packet pickup location. There's only one this year, and that's at the office. So you will likely either be picking up packets from me, from Angel, or from Ale, who you see on screen. No, that's a lie, not from Ale. Either me or Angel, you will pick packets up from at the IFCLA office, and there'll be a sign out process and things like that. Once both teams approve it, then we share, IFCLA staff will communicate with you on WhatsApp. So if you don't have WhatsApp, now is your time to download it and get it on your phone and make sure that you are connected and ready to go, because it is a secure messaging. So that way we're just being respectful about how we use people's information, and it makes it very easy to delete it and remove it from your phone when you're done with IFER. Then there's the communication coordination phase, where the volunteers are talking with each other and where the volunteers are speaking with the Compa, you're getting the packet, you're making arrangements. Then there's the payment, right, where you are delivering the cash, and then there's the report back. So the first step, which again, this would apply to generally applies to the Spanish speaking volunteer on the cash distribution team. There is a call script for this, so that can assist you as well. But basically your first step is to call and introduce yourself and say, hey, you're funded. We'd like to give you $500 for the Eiffer Fund. So that's kind of the point of the call, is to notify that they've been approved for funding, and to say, I'm the volunteer that is able to get the money into your pocket. How do we do that? And so there's, again, you do this similar to what Rita sort of role modeled with the check calls. you are going to credential yourself as an IFCLA volunteer. You're going to tell why you're calling. You're going to confirm that you're speaking to the applicant or to their secondary contact. So that will also be information that we send you via WhatsApp. So some people said like, oh, you can call me, but you can also talk to my husband and his name is Ralph and here's his whatever, right? So it's okay if you talk to either of those people. We had a couple folks I remember last year that like the mom was the applicant, but the daughter was the person that like most of the communication and correspondence went through or something like that, right? As long as that's spelled out by the compa in their application, then that's what you're going to look for who I should talk to. You want to confirm that they actually do want to receive the payment in cash. Sometimes folks last year switched and decided, you know what, I can just do it by check. That's fine. And so you just confirm that. And then you, like I mentioned, you agree on a time and a place to meet the compa and confirm all of that. Set the expectations, right? So like you would want to explain, it's me and my friend who's also a volunteer. We'll be there together. We'll both be wearing masks. And we'll need you to sign a receipt when we get there that after you receive the money and make sure it's all there, then you sign the receipt that I take back to so that we know that the money went to the right person. And then I sometimes on those calls would say something like, great, I'll text you on Tuesday morning when I'm on my way and I'll see you at X time, X place, right? And then follow up on WhatsApp and kind of say, hey, it's Lisa, just confirming what we talked about on the phone. Here are the details. See you then. Let me know if anything changes. When you meet I kind of already went through this, but when you meet the compa, it, like I said, is sometimes helpful to text when you're on your way or upon arrival, especially if you're meeting not at someone's house, if you're meeting in the public library or outside of a church or something like that. You can describe your car, your clothes, or, we'll be the two white ladies standing outside, whatever the case may be, right? So you can describe yourself and make sure that they have a way to contact you when you're approaching the touch point for cash distribution. When you get there, you want to introduce yourself again and make sure that the person who is there is the person that you spoke with, right? So we I think had one time in 730 some odd applications last year that someone showed up and it was like, oh, my husband's not here. But that person wasn't listed as the secondary contact. And so we just navigated that conversation and situation and the guy got on the phone and it was fine, right? But you want to make sure that the people that you're talking to are the people you're supposed to be talking to. That being said, one of the values that Rita outlined at the beginning of this training is trust. And so we're not asking for identity. I don't want a blood sample. Don't make anyone pee in a damn cup, right? If someone says, I'm who I am, and that's who we are, you say, okay, right? And the point is that people are trustworthy and that we can trust each other and we have to lean into that and demonstrate it. And I can say from last year's experience, that works. I think that's the simple way to say that. Once they've handed everything, they sign the cash receipt. So when the person who picks up the packet from the office picks up the packet, Angela or I will explain what that cash receipt is, because there's a top part which you fill out that basically says, I'm the volunteer and I'm delivering to this person. And then when you're there, the person says like on this date, on this time, and they kind of fill it in and sign it. And that's all. So you make it real simple. And it's just about transparency and honesty on our part as well, so that we're accountable to them too. Then when you're done, you kind of ask if there's any additional questions. There's a letter that will be in the packet pickup. So the packet is the money, the cash receipt, and then the letter. The cash receipt comes back. The other two things go to the compa. The letter is bilingual. It has some access, lists some other resources in the community and places that they can go for additional help. It also credentials ISPN and ensures that they have a way to contact someone at ISPN if they need to follow up with anything or express any concerns. They have that transparency too. And I think that's it. So to recap fund distribution, the first step, you confirm the time and place. I am going to ask and be pretty adamant that anytime that you're volunteering for IFCLA, I would like you to wear a mask. I know the CDC guidelines are changing. I know most of us are probably vaccinated at this time. That's great. I think it's just a sign of respect, if nothing else at this point, that you wear a mask. If you want to push back and you want to talk to me about that further, I would be happy to do that offline. I'm not in a place that it feels appropriate to mandate folks get vaccinated, but I am going to pretty much mandate that folks wear a mask when you're volunteering. That being said, if you're on Zoom, maybe I should clarify this language slightly. If you're volunteering in person for IFCLA, please wear a mask. And then, you know, that doesn't mean that I'm mandating compas to wear masks or mandating behavior of anyone other than the volunteers. And so just please be aware of that. Last year, we had a lot more talk about how to safely distance hand cash to people. And there was like, set it down and take 2 steps back and knock on the door and then take 2 steps forward. And it was like this very articulate dance. I don't think we need to go into that degree of detail now. And I'm going to trust that you are going to honor what is best for the compa and what ensures that they feel safe and in control of the situation, and that you also feel safe and in control of the situation. Cool? Okay. And then after you distribute the cash, then you'll get the cash receipt, return that to IFCLA. A lot of folks brought it back, like if you came back the next day to pick up more cash, then you brought it back in physical copy. Some folks dropped it off at the office. We have a mailbox outside the door. Some folks also just texted a picture of it and sent it to Ankel or me, would send it to one of us as staff on WhatsApp, and that's okay too. And then once we have it, we just ask that you destroy after you confirm that we have received it, then you can destroy the original and not hold on to any of that. As you'll recall from the confidentiality agreement waiver, we ask that no information be stored after the volunteering is complete. So obviously you're going to store the information during the week when you're going back and forth and coordinating things. And when that's closed out, circle done, delete the information. Cool? Okay, I'm going to pause here and we can do some questions. Where are you confused? Where do you need more information? How can we help better prepare you to succeed?
I also wanted to name that I'm on a roll today. We might get out of here in 1 hour, then 1 hour and 30 minutes as we previously planned. But I think part of that is because the folks who are here, you all are familiar with the fund. But if there are any questions that you do have, please feel free to ask them.
I just want to clarify. I think it's like that we have basically 3 days to distribute the funds, to deliver them. I guess my only thought is, like, if that isn't possible, like in those 3 days, like just you know, different schedules or whatever, what would we do?
That's a great question. So ideally, you'll have Tuesday through Saturday, so a little bit more than 3 days. So ideally on Tuesday, folks can be able to come to the office and pick up cash. And so that could mean that folks are delivering as quickly as Tuesday evening. That might mean you're right, and it's going to be, oh, I can't until Saturday, or I can't until Sunday, or I'm out of town this week, but I'll be back next week. That's okay. And so I think the plan is to make sure that there is a plan to get it out the door and into the right hand by the end of the week. And I think generally my experience from last year was, if you're calling someone to say, I got $500 for you, it happens pretty quickly that you can meet. And if it doesn't, that's okay, right? And so I think the idea here is not that I send you a message on Tuesday and then on Saturday you reach out to the compa and see what's going on, right? So I think that it is not to pressure or to rush, but to ensure that the timeline is as much held by the compa as possible. And so if we're being the obstacle for information, then that's not what we're going for.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, if it needs to happen the next day or the next week, we'll work it out. And I think just communicate with whoever is the staff point of contact. So we'll kind of, from the back end, you'll probably, I think each team will be assigned to like a person. And so you will either hear from me or from Angel or from Ale. And so like whoever your point of contact is, you would go back and forth and make sure that they're informed about what's happening. To be clear, I don't need you to confirm like, okay, Sarah, got it. We're going to meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. at this place. I don't need that. But if it's like some other circumstance, yeah, you let us know. Cool. Other questions, thoughts, or concerns?
This is probably a little more personal, but at some point, Sarah or Rita or someone who is fluent in Spanish, just start talking to me in Spanish and like essentially decide if I can help with the Spanish stuff or if I need to keep being English only. Just anytime that it happens naturally.
Great. We'll make that happen. Any other questions or thoughts or concerns before we have like one more slide here to wrap up. Okay, jump back over to that.
Alrighty, what did we talk about tonight? Well, if you zoned out for a little bit, we have some next steps for you. So you just attended a training. Congratulations. That was step 1. Step 2, following the training tonight, we're going to be sending you a post-training email. The things that you need to volunteer, you need to watch the training. You did that. Number 2, you need to sign a volunteer waiver form. And then based on the role that you selected when you signed up for this training, we'll be following up with you accordingly, whether that was application support, then we'll follow up with you to sign up for a shift. If that was for confirmation calls to call folks who have selected check as their form of payment and confirm those details, we'll follow up with you that way. Or fund distribution, then you'll be paired with someone and you will be calling folks and then being able to meet folks and then deliver those funds. Just to recap our timeline, application support starts as early as tomorrow if you have a signed waiver and if you've watched the training. Remember, you've already done one of those 2 things. Congratulations. And then confirmation calls and then fund distribution would begin the week of June 7th. And again, the idea is not, oh my gosh, we need to get the money out right now. And if you don't get it out by the 12th, then like everything like falls apart. But more so, we understand that there is an immediate need that we are trying to meet. And so we are going to do our due diligence in order to meet those needs and try to have a plan, make communication with folks, and then stick to that plan in order to do it as efficiently and safely as possible. That's all I got.
The other thing that will come in the email is the link to the volunteer portal. And so that portal will have links to all the information. So you don't have to try to keep it straight or like file it. It'll all be in the portal. And we'll make sure that you have the login information to get to that portal. And then once you're in the portal, for those that aren't familiar with it, sort of divided into volunteer categories. And so you would select Eiffer Fund, and then you would see access to the recording in case you needed to reference this. You'll see charts and graphs and timelines and the call scripts and anything else that I think you could possibly want to support this, it will be there. We've also included the quick links to access both the application in English and in Spanish. So if you need to share it with someone who you know that might want to apply, or if you are on the call support team and you need to help someone complete the application, you have them right there as well. So all of that will come by email. If you are not sure if you signed the confidentiality agreement or waiver, just send me or Rita an email, and we'll make sure that we have one for you. If I get to the point of contacting folks and I see that you don't have one, I'll be reminding you and sending you the link.
On that same note, I think I've filled out what I needed to, and there was a place to say like who you would want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I had not talked with my previous partner, who happens to be on the Zoom. So I just told her to put my name, but I just wanted to make sure that we were together because we did it so well.
I will make sure that you are. Okay. If I have any question, or if I send it to you and you're like, this isn't right, just let me know and we'll change it.
That's fine.
I like to keep everybody happy.
I did list Lisa's name, so.
Great.
On mine.
Excellent.
Awesome. Okay, any other questions? Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. Thanks for your commitment to do this. Make sure you download WhatsApp. That's the other thing that's going to be in the follow-up email as a reminder to make sure you have WhatsApp. I think that's all for tonight.
Okay, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.